Let's go live now to Canberra, where Sky News political reporter Cam Reddin is on the scene. Cam, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us?
Yeah, James, that's the latest update we have from the AFP on the record. My understanding is that the search has now completed, that after about 3 hours, officers did not find anything suspicious and that they are now winding down their search of the lodge behind me. So that's the latest information we have. Between now and when this incident began, when the search began around 6 o'clock, it's a little unclear of what triggered it. There's no confirmation from the police about what instigated this search. We do know, James, as you mentioned, the Prime Minister was evacuated from the lodge, taken to a different location. We're not sure where that is. For obvious reasons, that's not being shared, that information. The police search lasted about 3 hours and is now winding down. The AFP say there is no threat to the community, but understandably something that you do not see very often, the Prime Minister having to leave his own place of residence where he lives, even in non-sitting weeks in Canberra.
Was it just Anthony Albanese who was evacuated? What about Jody and what about staff who are at the lodge?
We don't have information on that, James, but what I can give you a little bit of context about how the day has unfolded. In the mid-afternoon, the Prime Minister was taking part in a live-streamed podcast in the lodge, and that went for about an hour. That was around 2 o'clock. There were plenty of comments that were filtering in through that podcast. Now, we don't know what triggered this, as I say, but between that happening at 2 o'clock and this search instigating at 6 o'clock, that is when police and authorities have become aware of the threat, and we don't know the nature of that threat, where it came from, what was being threatened, but they considered it serious enough to take action in this case. And it's worth noting too, James, that the rate of threats that politicians face of this nature, they range from everything from serious threats like this one to where the Prime Minister has had to be moved and they've taken action, to people hurling abuse on social media, on the street and elsewhere. But in this particular case, the AFP, as you can imagine, they are very well protective of the Prime Minister and his residents down here. They've considered it serious enough at the very least to take this action and move him to another location.
Cam, we can see a bit of movement behind you. You say it's winding down there. At the peak of all of this, what was it like? How many police were there and what sort of measures were taken to keep media away?
No measures to keep us away. As you can imagine, James, there would not be a desire to have lights and sirens flooding around the Prime Minister's residence. We did see several police cars come and go from here. We've been here for the last hour or so watching it unfold, and it's fair to say that there hasn't been a great deal of activity in the time that I've been standing out here, but this is a very public place, James. It's a very prominent part of Canberra. Australians know the Prime Minister talks about it. He lives here. Unlike all Prime Ministers, some of them live in Kirribilli, some live elsewhere. The Prime Minister has chosen to live in Canberra. But in terms of broader activity around here, it's been fairly minimal. I would add too that the AFP are incredibly professional at handling these. In just the last financial year, the AFP received nearly 1,000 different threats referred to them from federal MPs. That's in the space of 12 months. And as I say, that ranges from somebody commenting on a Facebook page to something like we've seen tonight. So they're very well drilled, they're very professional, and in this case have responded in the swiftest possible way.
Now, of course, as we've said, the Prime Minister was evacuated from the lodge, but for people who are not familiar with how things work at the lodge, what's normal security like?
Oh, pretty tight, as you'd imagine, James. I mean, for those who haven't visited in the capital, it's a walled building. There are grounds behind it on a public road. There's a highway to my right. There's parks to my left, but it's pretty much suburbia, as suburban as Canberra gets. It's a very well-known building, as you can imagine. There's cameras, there's police that are around, all the security that you'd anticipate. But for all intents and purposes, James, if you didn't know any better, you could walk down the road and not know it was the lodge if you weren't a resident here, if you didn't know that. So, look, nothing outside the ordinary in terms of the police presence at the moment, other than what I would say is a few extra cars doing the last of that search.
Just one more question, Cam. Are we expecting the Prime Minister to return to the lodge this evening, or is he going to be away all night and they'll sort it out tomorrow?
That we don't know, James. All I know for now is that through the duration of this search, the Prime Minister was taken elsewhere. As you can imagine, that his movements are not being steadily forecast at this particular point while the AFP is still looking into this. So I think we can expect in the morning a bit more clarity around what triggered this in the first place. The Prime Minister does live in Canberra, but at the moment we do not know exactly where he is. But I'm told he's safe, there's no ongoing threat to the community, and that this police operation is now winding down a bit after 10 o'clock Eastern Time.
All right, well, Cam Reddin, thanks for bringing us the latest. And, of course, if there's any further developments tonight, we'll go back to you. We appreciate your time.